Okay, in 2020, we have been invited at Venice Biennale of Architecture, and the question of Sarkis Hashim, that was the curator of all Venice Biennale, was how we will live together, thinking about humans and more than humans. And so we had this opportunity to being present at the Italian Pavilion. We've been invited inside the Italian Pavilion and to create an installation, material installation, and another one that is not material because it's the process, and I'm going to show to you the film. But as well, we had the opportunity to call our community, because our community is splitted over the world, and this is the cover of the catalog we have done, that is like an anthology, where we are inside, but we built this anthology to situate ourselves. So there are a lot of colleagues, in between there is Mark, that are working globally around the world and use this particular sensitive way of working that in somehow is similar or something in common with us. So this is, I hope you recognize it. This is the AP, the landscape, il paesaggio by Leonardo da Vinci. And that is our master, it's my master, is our master. So thinking about landscape, we cannot speak about this idea of the systemic approach in redesigning or representing the landscape. This wonderful little drawing is considered in Uffizi, in the Uffizi archive, of course, but it's really important because it's considered the first representation of a modern way of representing the landscape, where the landscape is not a fixed, like a drop, like desktop, or setting for other kinds of, for the human beings. Like, for example, Botticelli used to make in that period, and Leonardo criticized Botticelli for this, but it's in movement, because Leonardo, that was a genius, that was an architect, a landscape architect, a doctor, and wherever, scientist, he understood the similarity, the parallelism in between the human being and the landscape. We are part of the system. We are part of the unicum, and we have to work in harmony and in parallel with the rest of the planet. Okay, this is another ideogram by Leon Vaskijk, that is my master as well, my mentor, considered one of the most clever minds in Australia. And that this is the representation of what we have done by our installation. So at the end, this is part of our installation in Venice Biennale. So this is the material part that was made by this green wall of 22 square meters, that in reality is a living green wall that was able to absorb 1 ton of CO2 emission in 6 months of expo in Venice Biennale, but is a living organism, like, and at the soil, you can see the dry part of Posidonia oceanica, that is really important plant of Mediterranean Sea, for the oxygenation of our life under the sea. And this is the dry part that normally is arrived with the water on the beaches, but the human being, the tourists, they detest. So normally we clean the beaches for the touristic period, but it is really important, fundamental for the proliferation of vegetation, the flora inside the dune, to protect the dunescape. So it's a system of protection of our environment. And back, you can see there are were a series of video that were documenting our methodology. And here on the little screen, you can see this is Julia Watson, really famous architect that teach an award, but was part of the series of film of our community that we invite to share the place and the experience with us. So this is the part of little technical part of what we have done. This plant, they were 600 plants, and they were all from Asinara Natural Park, where we are based. And inside of this, there is the Centaurea orrida, that is a paleo-endemism, is a plant that is surviving since thousands of years, so it's an example of resiliency. this because we were inside the section of resilience and art. So these plants, they were blossoming thanks to the lights, of course, but during the 6 months, they were able to live and in coexistence with the human being that arrived to approach and to enjoy our pavilion during the 6 months of events and etc. Okay, but how we made this installation? We bring physically, literally, the plants with us, and we made the installation with the local community of Asinara Island, that at the moment they are worker of the agency, forestry, and the park. So here you can see how we physically built our installation. This is really particular, not particular, but it's our way of working, making the things. Instead of arriving in Venice Biennale with, a lot of, we saw our colleagues, how they were working. They made a design, wonderful project, and then they were like the company that they were making, realizing for them. We wanted to make by ourselves. We test on site, making mistake, of course, but working together to realize this installation in 3 days of work, arriving from Asinara. Okay. And then the other important thing is that being an NGO, we collaborated with other NGO. And in Venice, for example, here you can see me, that we are saving because we brought more plants, of course, if something could occur for these little creatures. And so there was another NGO that was a nursery that was taking care of the plants. And after the disinstallation, this plant, some died, of course, but the majority survived. They are a part of a garden of another NGO near Veneto. Okay, so I told you that there is this installation was a way to put in communication Sardinian Island, so the reality of Asinara Natural Park, so the local community over there, and Venice Biennale. So we made installation over there as well, made by elements that arrived in this sense, the hoods with the sea on the beaches of Asinara Island, because we couldn't import nothing on the island except our flag, of course. This is the video that is showing to you the film that was presented at Venice Biennale, that is going to show to you the process of what you have saw.
Batterie sommerse svolgono la stessa funzione, quindi una funzione legata prima di tutto all'ossigenazione delle acque. Allo stesso tempo l'organizzazione della CO2 quindi ha un ruolo importante anche nell'effetto serra di tutto il pianeta, con lo stoccaggio proprio di carbonio nelle sue strutture vegetative. E poi la Posidonia vive in ambienti sabbiosi, ha questa grande funzione di trasformare dei fondali incoerenti, quindi difficilmente colonizzabili dalla maggior parte degli organismi del mare, in invece delle strutture semirigide o rigide con la parte rizomale, con le radici. Ci innescano tutte le catene alimentari che poi portano all'aumento della biodiversità del nostro mare. Ed è un simbolo anche per le popolazioni resilienti, perché in realtà la storia biologica della Posidonia è una storia molto particolare, perché circa 5 milioni di anni fa il Mediterraneo aveva subito una forte evaporazione, quindi praticamente era quasi scomparso, e invece questa pianta, a differenza di tantissimi altri organismi che ci sono estinti, è riuscita a sopravvivere, persistere quindi nel nostro mare e diventare la specie simbolo. Anche il nome Posidonia ovviamente vuol dire del mare, oceanica perché ha una distribuzione importante su tutto il Mediterraneo, in realtà non è presente nell'Oceano Atlantico, quindi ha un nome che racconta appunto la sua ampia distribuzione in ambito mediterraneo.
Asinara è una realtà che è sempre stata caratterizzata
tra presenza antropica e ambiente. Soprattutto è stato in passato, prima ancora che colonia penale, è stata un lazaretto, una colonia sanitaria. Ci sembrava particolarmente adatto andare a sperimentare e portare questo esempio di equilibrio che è storico, che va avanti da tanti anni, stiamo parlando di secoli, all'interno dell'isola dell'Asinara, quale esempio plausibile, possibilità di condivisione, partecipazione tra l'essere umano, quindi una pressione antropica che comunque è sempre presente, per quanto possa essere lieve, e con la realtà che ci circonda. Gli humans temono degli humans.
Riconosciamo ancora tutte quelle presenze biologiche, tutti quegli endemismi che raccontano episodi molto importanti anche della vita geologica di questo territorio, in generale del territorio della Sardegna, del blocco Santo Corso, e che qua sono ancora presenti e appunto sono in grado di descrivere questi fenomeni così importanti che magari sono capitati 30 milioni di anni fa, ma che ancora oggi raccontano questi paleoendemismi molto antichi. Oggi faccio tornare a Ori, questo per fare un esempio, raccontano eventi che veramente provengono dal passato.
Siamo partiti in questo luogo magico in piena pandemia, con la Sardegna in zona rossa, ovviamente tutto programmato da tempo, la nostra comunità creativa resiliente ha invogliato da più punti del globo e siamo arrivati sull'isola dell'Asinara, dove abbiamo con l'operazione del parco, la comunità resiliente dal punto di vista antropico dell'isola, realizzato delle installazioni effimere, questi dispositivi, per capire come la comunità locale vede, intende queste relazioni con questo ambiente, con questo paesaggio. La nostra comunità resiliente guida, una volta che arriva in un luogo, pratica un processo osmotico, respirando, si dilata, si fonde con quello che trova, sia per quanto riguarda appunto gli elementi antropici e quelli non antropici, e interagisce. Entra in simbiosi, iniziamo un processo di progettazione che è partecipato dall'inizio alla fine. È il processo e la metodologia attraverso la quale noi arriviamo a instaurare questo rapporto dialogico con i locali per poi arrivare a produrre il risultato che in realtà vuole cambiare la percezione della realtà. Il progetto, che non è mai preconfezionato, c'è sempre l'idea ma che viene definita in cantiere in loco, si compie facendolo. E questo processo di brainstorming, di condivisione, di conoscenza del luogo, alla fine fa sì che in veramente breve periodo, ma di conoscenza molto intensa, alla fine quello che per noi è l'altro diventa parte di noi. Quindi fare delle cose insieme, progettare insieme, realizzare delle cose insieme, quindi condividere le belle normali, le tempistiche, delle necessità logistiche di soluzionare, come dicono in spagnolo, la soluzione in cantiere, nel campo, aiuta molto a legare le persone che partecipano a questo processo di progettazione lingue è fondamentale per noi, per me, secondo me oggi per gestire la complessità dei nostri paesaggi culturali, come degli strumenti nelle mani delle comunità con le quali li interagiamo. Complementarietà e complicità sono fondamentali per la riuscita dell'installazione. Quindi quando noi siamo arrivati al parco della Asinara, loro ci hanno accolto e ci hanno messo nelle condizioni di realizzare quello che noi volevamo fare con loro, quindi hanno giocato con noi e sono state dietro la sperimentazione. Loro sono stati comunque fondamentali, cioè c'è stato questo rapporto simbiotico tra noi e loro ed è quella che noi proponiamo come la formula, la ricetta per una visione della pratica professionale, della disciplina dell'architettura per i nostri paesaggi contemporanei. Io penso che l'architettura contemporanea non possa più trattare solamente di strumenti meramente architettonici, ma deve necessariamente pensarsi all'interno di mondi quali sono l'ambiente, l'architettura del paesaggio, l'ecologia, tutte queste tematiche che sono parti fondanti della disciplina architettonica.
Okay, so that was the part where the living creature, the plants, were arriving with us at Venice Biennale. I think that you all recognize the Italian pavilion, the Tese in Venice Arsenale. So at the Asinara Lab I made this map, really quite rude, sorry, fast map, to let you somehow, probably you know where is Sardinia, but all not the world know where is Sardinia. And so I made this map to somehow situate the situation make a georeferentiation of the situation. So Sardinia, Venice Biennale, Asinara Island, the National Park of Asinara, and then the place where we have done our installation, the Posidonia Oceanica, over there, the Centaurea Orrida, the marvelous place of Natural Park of Asinara that you have already saw by the video, and the resilient local communities. You heard the voice of these guys. They are Sardinian, so the cultural reality of this place, and us that we are in somehow working with them to build in somehow this artifact full of meaning for them, the opening. We had a lot of events, etc. in between Asinara and Venice, because we wanted to create a real, even if it's only symbolic, dialogue in between the two realities through our installation. And this is, as you can see, the user of our installation, because the local community is made by donkeys mostly. Okay, so after this, for the reason that we wanted to create, a pavilion, a part of the pavilion that could be like a work in progress workshop, we moved to Asinara during the red period for COVID in Sardinia, and then we decided to come back at home for us and somehow, and go to Mexico, despite the fourth wave of COVID. So we left, and we arrived in Mani, in Merida, near Merida, in Yucatan. I'm going to show to you where, sorry. So we were in Asinara, and then in Maya Lab, because we work with the people from Maya. So Yucatan, Mani, only to give to you some, way of try to see better where we worked. And there we create our, again, a long process, not so long, 10 days, but a process that was a way to create a connection in between the minority of Mayans population and Venice Biennale, to try to find a way to give a voice to this minority.
In realtà questo progetto nasce l'idea di voler capire come how we live together, come vivendo insieme, per capire come vivere insieme siamo dovuti venire sino ai Maya, siamo dovuti arrivare fino nello Yucatan, partire dall'Italia in piena terza ondata Covid per quanto riguarda il Messico e anche per quanto riguarda l'Italia, di fatto, scavando un po' quella che è stata la realtà Maya, no? Cercando un po' di capire la resilienza, questa modalità di resilienza da una cultura millenaria, 3.000 anni di storia proprio romana, ma soprattutto cercare di capire come vivono oggi i Maya, quindi le minoranze Maya. E per fare tutto questo ci siamo avventurati di fatto qui nella selva a sud di Merida, in un piccolo villaggio che si chiama Mani. Abbiamo capito che è molto importante questo villaggio, ma non è stato molto importante perché proprio intorno alla fine del 1500, in questo piccolo villaggio di Mani, succede che questo frate chiede un atto di fede ai Maya e brucia i codici dove c'erano tutti i geroglifici dei Maya. Riscrive la storia, quindi è una cosa fortissima, un atto fortissimo, no? Di dominazione, questo di voler cancellare la realtà, tutto quello che c'era prima, tabula rasa. In realtà quello che noi abbiamo visto è stato molto particolare, perché abbiamo ritrovato una comunità che sembrava orfana, priva di memoria, no? Attaccata in maniera quasi, come si può dire, quasi incosciente a queste consuetudini, importantissima di questa costruzione della casa Maya, che era fondamentale, perché attraverso la costruzione della casa Maya si trasmette la memoria storica di questa minoranza, di questo popolo, che è un popolo che cerchiamo di fare noi, cioè questa cosa di fissare attraverso la rivisitazione di quello che del nostro vissuto, del contatto con queste popolazioni che sono molto diverse da noi, attitudini diverse, condizioni climatiche diverse, usanze, costumi, lingua, idioma diverso, che abbiamo comunque dialogato in castigliano con loro, abbiamo avuto il piacere anche di poter ascoltare la lingua maya. Questa realtà che in qualche maniera ci accomuna, questo full immersion, per cercare di capire la realtà di questo luogo e di leggere e farlo di leggere questa realtà attraverso le nostre installazioni, attraverso i nostri viaggi, attraverso i nostri documentari e caricare, fare qualcosa che poi è carico di simbolismo, è carico di memoria storica per loro, qualcosa in cui loro si possano identificare. In realtà è qualcosa che abbiamo visto che ci accomuna, no? Con questa necessità dell'essere umano di identificarsi nel simbolo che poi rappresenta la memoria storica della propria civiltà, della propria famiglia, dei propri ancestors e della propria realtà di fatto. Abbiamo voluto fare era poter dare voce a queste minoranze, capire un po' di più, soprattutto rispetto al loro spirito di adattamento, alla resilienza. Abbiamo visto che comunque vivono delle condizioni meteo abbastanza estreme, abbiamo provato sulla nostra pelle la difficoltà di lavorare in ambienti di questo tipo e abbiamo cercato di entrare al massimo che noi potevamo in simbiosi con queste realtà, per poi cercare appunto di reinterpretare quello che abbiamo visto e appunto dare voce a questa realtà, cioè cercare di capire come questa realtà potesse essere di esempio, sempre tornando al discorso della famosa domanda di GSA, how we live together, come vivremo insieme. La volontà di creare un luogo e non un'installazione, ma un luogo vivente, l'idea di questa grande triangolazione, queste porte, no? Queste porte spazio-temporali, potessero mettere in comunicazione queste realtà, un po' anche rifacendoci all'idea come venivano topograficamente posizionate queste realtà, queste grandi piramidi, trasportare ma lì nella contemporaneità, pensando alla nostra installazione che è stata partecipata con la comunità locale soprattutto, è fortemente evoluta la comunità locale. Io penso che quello che è stato diverso rispetto alle nostre avventure precedenti è stata proprio questa cosa dell'attesa. Quando per esempio abbiamo messo in scena l'installazione il giorno prima dell'inaugurazione della chiusura, che eravamo in attesa, no? Che le autorizzazioni arrivassero per mettere in opera la nostra installazione, con tutti i materiali a terra, lì che erano in attesa di prendere il loro posto. Abbiamo anche questa idea della porta spazio-temporale, questa connessione tra ovviamente la Sardegna, che è il nostro sito fondamentale, il nostro casa spirituale e non solo, dell'Asinara, e le installazioni partite vicino delle comunità resilienti in Asinara che guardano a ovest, verso Manini, verso la Spagna e poi verso Manini. Quindi è stato questo viaggio dall'Asinara oltre la Spagna fino a Manini, questa performance partecipata carica di significati che è partita ovviamente con queste visite fisiche, ma poi queste speculazioni, queste brainstorming con gli studenti, con i locali tra noi, no? Per cercare di capire cosa poteva essere questa installazione, che è partita quindi col Cenote, con la storia di Manini. Innanzitutto c'è stato questo posizionamento dal centro di questa città che un tempo era una città Maya, un villaggio Maya, quindi fondamentalmente basata sulla piramide che stava al centro, tutto intorno alla selva, allineata col cenote, che era di fatto il cenote sacro, l'acqua sacra. E quindi dal cenote alla selvas, cioè gli alberi sacri fondamentali che erano importantissimi per i Maya perché rappresentavano la vita, e questa porta con l'ultraterreno, questo allineamento tra il cenote, la sela e la piramide, ma soprattutto una piramide che oggi non c'è più, quindi una memoria storica cancellata di fatto nei segni della città, dell'urbano, della realtà urbana, dove la schiacciante prepotenza degli spagnoli si è manifestata con questa griglia rigidissima quadrangolare che ha riordinato tutta questa realtà, cancellando la piramide, cancellando le casette Maya. Sono state classico, no? Atteggiamento imperialista, colonialista, quindi la piramide è stata cancellata, è stato lasciato solo il basamento, ripeto, e sono state utilizzate per costruire una chiesa. Questa installazione, che rappresenta la comunità, le comunità resilienti di Maya, nello specifico di Mani per Venezia, la porta verso Venezia, alla fine l'abbiamo chiamata, questa sorta di megafono, prende spunto da queste suggestioni e poi di fatto rimandare a questa la taumachia, no? Questa pratica che viene sempre dagli spagnoli, ma che in realtà è stata in qualche maniera accettata e assorbita quasi in maniera simbiotica dai Maya. Questi tablados, questi giochi, questa architettura affascinante, organica, che si manifesta completamente condivisa, la festa effimera, che tutto accade in un giorno, no? Con la comunità che arriva e tira su queste architetture, quasi come se fosse una sinfonia architettonica, però senza, la cosa molto interessante che ci è piaciuto tantissimo è che sono realmente l'espressione della condivisione, e quindi in qualche maniera l'idea di how we live together, dove non c'è chi dirige l'orchestra, ma di fatto questi palchi vengono montati dalle famiglie una accanto all'altro e uno dai lati, questa cosa quasi come un domino cresce, si manifesta, c'è la festa e il miracolo, il gioco della taromatia, questa realtà di queste persone che si identificano in questa condivisione, in questa architettura condivisa che viene montata e rismontata in maniera gioiosa. La festa ci è piaciuta molto e in realtà quindi alla fine l'installazione che abbiamo voluto rendere è un po' una rivisitare questa memoria, creare questa porta di connessione con Venezia, ovviamente, per fare in modo che la realtà, come noi abbiamo vissuta e come l'abbiamo rivisitata con i nostri strumenti culturali, visto che noi ci consideriamo sempre degli strumenti delle mani delle comunità con le quali lavoriamo, ha voluto dare vita a questa installazione materica che è nata dall'osservazione, dal brainstorming, dalla comunicazione con la popolazione locale. È stata proprio concepita dall'inizio alla fine fino alla realizzazione con i locali. I locali ci hanno donato i legni, le forchette, come li chiamano qua, che qui sono i pilastri delle case Maya, la base delle case Maya, e sono la base di questi tablados di fatto che sono questo momento di festa e queste architetture effimere. Fisicamente i locali hanno lavorato con noi, con la nostra comunità creativa che si è allargata sempre per osmosi, come ci piace dire a noi, ha inglobato per quella settimana scarsa questa realtà, l'ha metabolizzata, l'ha digerita e poi ha dato adito a questa nuova installazione che per l'appunto è la connessione tra noi, loro e la Biennale di Architettura di Venezia, che è un modo per raccontare una storia diversa, una storia di resilienza estrema.
Okay, so this was what we have done during the Venice Biennale, considering during the COVID waves, but with the possibility to travel. The year before, 2020, we were all in lockdown, but we knew that we had to be at Venice Biennale. It was postponed of 1 year. And so what we thought to do was to try to put ourselves, our community, to test ourselves, of course without students, but with another kind of resilient community. So we embarked to Sardinia, we became a crew, and we, in a sailing boat, we were something like 10 people with some guests, art critics, and that were with us inside the boat. So we embarked for this area that is in between Corsica and Sardinia, in the middle of Mediterranean area, and where the resilient community in the Santa Maria Island, where the resilient community in reality was a community of junipers. So we started we were deeply, disappointed, under confusion, and we were thinking what we could say in this situation, what we could apport to the debate of our discipline, thinking of the questions that the curator made to us, how we live together. So thinking in humans and more than humans. So that year, we decided to put ourselves like humans in a listening modality and in relationship with the more than humans. And so when we arrived in the island, we started in working with this dialogical process with the family of junipers that were attacked by lichens, and somehow we started with our discussions and our relationship with these more than humans.
Quando noi siamo arrivati qui avevamo un po' necessariamente questa mentalità, modus operandi di costruire, no? Quindi noi siamo partiti con l'idea che avremmo costruito qualcosa. Quando siamo arrivati qua davanti, le nostre certezze si sono sciolte come la cera, il sole, e questo secondo me è molto metaforico per quel messaggio che noi vorremmo dare. Una via di mezzo tra il viaggio di Enea, che cerca una nuova patria, e un po' il viaggio della Divina Commedia. Quello che ci ha offerto la natura in questo luogo ha offerto, cioè noi ci siamo adattati, siamo stati ingegneri da quello che abbiamo trovato, e abbiamo cominciato a capire che non era necessario sommare di più, ma soltanto approcci verso l'esterno, ci hanno guidato le sense stesse, che erano abbastanza più o meno liberate.
Credo che in termini di adattabilità sia un termine che meglio descrive questo tipo di esperienza. Arrivi ai condizioni, giocano un ruolo importante la luce, l'ombra, il fatto che tu hai la sensazione di dover entrare in una selva oscura e invece poi ti regala delle emozioni e delle esperienze che non immagini, e uno dei materiali principali del progetto è la luce. Questa punteggiatura di ginebri che hanno una tale forza per cui sopravvivono un lichene che li aggredisce e all'ampicante che li ha soffocati, che abbiamo aiutato a loro liberarsi. E il suolo che si offre come ricordo anch'esso, queste rocce che prendono spunto, la cruz si compone di un gruppo eccezionale. Ti devi anche in qualche modo educare a sapere gestire questa risorsa, perché il tempo non è infinito, o sì, e dipende anche questo da come tu lo vivi, però qui a un certo punto è una palestra anche per dire io poche cose in un tempo tutto sommato contenuto mi permettono comunque di raggiungere dei risultati, e allora lì si vede un po' il valore di questa esperienza, riuscire a tirare fuori il meglio in un luogo così magico in un tempo tutto sommato anche breve.
Quello che secondo me è venuto fuori in tutto questo discorso pandemico è il senso della comunità resilienti, no? Dell'accoglienza.
Okay, so this is what we have done in 2020. And instead, in 2019, while the COVID was somehow starting, we were in China in December 2019, and we walked inside the Shishinan village, so here in China, in the Anhui province, in the middle of China reality, where it's the Tourenscape Academy, they host us in this wonderful little village that is surrounded by this wonderful resource, and that somehow is completely sustainable, where there are organic vegetable garden everywhere, and where they use the resource the natural resource, the river, in a sustainable way. So they use in different periods of the day, and they make all in this river. Okay, so they clean their clothes, the fruits, their body, and etc.
barca ci ha portato a Sicilia.
Quindi siamo riusciti a fare una barca anche a Sicilia.
Sì, e in fondo la barca dall'Asinara a Sicilia è la metafora del lungo viaggio.
Anche dell'essere umano, del circus, no?
Sì.
In realtà volevamo fare un rifugio culturale, ma come che da un rifugio culturale abbiamo deciso di fare una barca?
Beh, perché in fondo la barca è un po' il rifugio dalle intemperie, il luogo del lavoro, della pesca, ma anche del riparo. Tu hai il mare che ti muove attorno e ti metti sotto coperta, quindi c'è questo concetto della protezione. È ancestrale, se vuoi. Questa rivelazione dell'idea che la barca con la luce potesse in qualche modo raccontare la storia, no? E qui stiamo cercando di ripresentare questa.
Sì, stiamo cercando di raccontare una storia che è la nostra storia, la loro storia e poi la storia dell'umanità, no? Il rifugio dove la cultura, quella che può, l'unica che può salvarci dalla misura del mondo. Anche perché la diversità è ricchezza, no?
Un posto per giocare, un posto per trasferire informazioni, un posto per condividere.
Abbiamo capito che gli abitanti di questo posto, che sono gli anziani, erano e sono realmente resilienti perché vivono come il tempo, no?
Sì.
Senza riscaldamento, senza l'acqua corrente, profondamente legati al loro luogo e all'acqua che scorre a questo fiume, dove loro fanno tutto, raccolgono l'acqua per bere, lavano i loro campi, i loro vegetali, eccetera.
Irrigano
Irrigano i loro campi meravigliosi. La foresta è vita, l'acqua è vita. Noi siamo partiti con questa idea del rifugio culturale da portare qui alla Biennale di Venezia, di Architettura di Venezia 2020, e l'idea è quella di girare un po' il mondo, no?
Sì.
Con queste nostre imbarcazioni ideali. I loro figlioli sono fuori nelle grandi città, li lasciano i bambini, però disperatamente avevano bisogno di un luogo dove poter andare a giocare con i loro nipoti, educare, no? Trasmettere questo bagaglio culturale.
Se tu pensi che qui ogni centimetro è coperto da orti ed è tutto vitale, quest'acqua è vita ed è memoria, qui la barca in qualche modo la celebra.
Poi questa cosa del rifugio culturale con la canopy del bambù, che la parte finale di queste bellissime travi che abbiamo tagliato nel luogo è stata, devo dire, un'idea abbastanza interessante. Questa cosa che il rifugio è vivente e che loro, se loro lo innaffiano, sia insomma, l'atmosfera, le condizioni meteo aiutano, ma se non aiutano le condizioni meteo ci sono c'è la pressione antropica, tra virgolette, qui quasi distante, ma c'è la condizione antropica dell'essere umano, vecchietti che vengono a innaffiare con i loro bambini, quindi innaffiare la loro memoria storica.
È un messaggio poetico ma anche molto forte.
Molto forte.
Barca è anche scoperta, quindi scoperta, spinta verso l'ignoto, in qualche modo è
Crescita,
nella
no?
natura dell'uomo.
Culturale, la natura dell'uomo. E poi di fatto, se ci pensi, questi human flow, comunque le scoperte, come dici tu, in passato avvenivano solo attraverso la navigazione,
l'esplorazione.
No? L'esplorazione. Bene, perfetto. Grazie, è stato un piacere.
Grazie Annacaterina, è un piacere mio di stare ancora una volta insieme a te vicino.
Grazie.
A presto.
Ci vediamo alla Biennale di Venezia.
Non mancate, maggio 2020. Ciao.
Ciao.
Okay, so this is what we have done in 2019, while the COVID was already there, but we didn't know. And then lastly, I would like to share with you an uncommon workshop we have done. I already told you that we work with and for the social inclusion of different kind of minorities. So I'm coming back to Florence, my city. This is La Veduta della Catena, is 15th century, one of the first bird view in the context of that period and of Florence in the specificity. And this is where we made the Arno Lab, is our place in Florence where we experimenting through these artistic attitudes and different kind of minorities, the social inclusion by this process, shared processes of designing the contemporary landscape. And here I want to share with you what we have done with the deaf actors that help us in perceiving the reality in completely different way. So this is the short video of the realization. This is the group of the deaf actor by which we collaborated since years so far. Okay, thanks so much.
My question is, for your last project, what was the assignment that you told the actors? I would like to know maybe a little more information on what the assignment was that they had to complete or engage in.
Okay, thanks for. I'm really happy that you like my presentation. Just yes, it's a little bit different, I have to say. So the deaf actors that collaborate with us are in somehow a tool in the hand of the community as we are, because they have their expertise and they work with this lady, Elisabetta Bianchesi, that you show in the video. She's an architect, my close friend since 20 years, so we work together. And probably you saw on the video, they were at the end, you saw a lot of colors, because this was 2019 in April, so before of COVID. We didn't knew nothing about COVID at that period. And we invite students from over the world. So we were a group with really well-known landscape architects. This was only a laboratory, a unit somehow inside the workshop, the big workshop, but I couldn't show to you all. And we invite every year in Florence 10 guys from this center where they were till 2019. They arrived from Libya, from the prison of Libya. They survived to the Mediterranean Sea. And every year we went to them, we explained our project, they applied for, and then they became part of the community. So they worked together with us, with the local, and with the students arriving from Harvard. They start in sharing. And some of the guys with other students, because are really different, the groups, we try to make as much as possible different groups where there are different kind of humanity. And that group work with the deaf actor. And somehow the deaf actor help us in experimenting the reality in a different way, because they cannot hear, of course, they speak with a language sign. So oblige us in changing the way we look the alterity and we look the reality. All our senses are super, excited, like how you feel with the haptic sense. So with your skin, no, it's the first way when you enter in an atmosphere, in a landscape, or in a room. The first sense that is touched by you, we believe that is the eyes, or no, the first is by our skin. That is the organ most long or large in our body. So the temperature touch us and somehow, so our body react, and then there is the view and all the other senses. But without hearing, we are obliged to use in different way our senses. So we do this to learn, to see, to change the perception of the things. What is considered like an handicap, sorry to use this, not normal, in reality is a different, is a resource for us. Help us in approaching a different ways in reality and ameliorate our capacity of understanding the reality, so the rest of the elements that are part of the system, being human being, being animals, being vegetation,
I have kind of like a question and a comment. So the question is, do you revisit the communities that you... Okay, so that's the question. That's the one question.
Yeah, normally we go there every year. Okay. So of course in Asinara Natural Park is around the corner. So we have our site over there, not physically because we don't have a site over there, but the park have a site. So we go there, we organize events. We are always, linked to them. It's a really strong partnership. But we went to China since 2017 every year. Unfortunately, now we cannot. We cannot enter, but we cannot wait to be back in Shishinan to see how it's changed the things, And Mexico también, sorry, as well. In Yucatan, we go every year. So the idea is to create this link and to live, make something together and live these devices that somehow take a measurement of how they live their places and how they are like a thermometer in somehow that can take the measurement of how our relationship change their way of living or seeing the things. Or so it's fundamental for us to be back in the place, to create these links between these communities that are exactly in the opposite side of the planet, but nothing is really distant, you know. With these devices, we make short the distance, the physical distance, of course.
Thank you. And my comment or like just thought is there's a lot of research about how to kind of learn from indigenous or traditional communities and then take elements from them and put it into like contemporary architecture. Mm-hmm. And I guess now it's becoming a question is like, what is your like thoughts about that? And I feel like I don't think some of the examples or precedents of that kind of appropriation, if I can put it like that, is very sincere, or if it's even going to help us in like the long run. But that's just something I was thinking about while I was watching the presentation.
I think that the difference that what we try to do is like really to re-put again the architect at the service of the community. So I've been trained in Italy, and I always make this kind of metaphor. I'll tell this story. I am from Sardinia, but since when I was 18, a lot of time ago, I live in Florence. And I always says this choral attitude in making architecture. If we think to Brunelleschi, Ser Filippo Brunelleschi, and the wonderful dome he has done, it was a choral way of making architecture. He never knew how to make the dome. It was a miracle. Even nowadays, the experts are trying to understand in somehow how it is working, and there are some hypotheses, of course, but the reality is that one was an architecture that the city want to make, and Ser Filippo Brunelleschi was able to make it, to find a solution with the worker on the site, on the field. Otherwise, it couldn't be impossible without PC, no, impossible. Algorithms or things like that. So this idea of a choral way of making architecture. So to think about the architect that couldn't be anymore an archistar. We were so disappointed, me personally, because during the COVID, the archistar, they were silent, completely, no one. And Renzo Piano, that is considered our Renzo Piano, the descendant, the pupil of Brunelleschi, they call our Brunelleschi, our Michelangelo, etc. He says, okay, no. It's no more that the young generation, we are on the shelter of the young generation. They are the giants. A person that is 85 years old and is still working and making all the master, you cannot say nothing, because it's like a god. So I was really disappointed. Colas was silent, completely, no word, with the complicity of the architecture, way of producing and making these, boxes, more heighter, this the powerful of the man, always bigger and bigger and taller, stronger, like that. We believe in a different way. We are at the service of the community because the architecture is for the people. as well as the landscape architecture, of course, but I was trained like architect. And at my period, the architect was like, I was trained to make all urbanism, landscape architecture, design, this idea of the humanistic, the Vitruvian man, with Leonardo da Vinci, that was a scientist, so was able, this systematic approach in the comprehension of the reality, like a part of this reality. This is, this is the idea. So this is the difference. It's not that we study, the local community, like to make an experiment and then to make our architecture, reinterpretation, making a reinterpretation of what we think, or, somehow taking from them. We try to do with them. Of course, we are not making hospitals, like, for example, our great colleagues, Tama Associati, they were the curator of the last pavilion, that they work with the emergency, another NGO, and they made wonderful architecture around the globe. But this is main the difference. We don't want to make like we know, we arrive and we bring the knowledge to you. No, we want to learn from you, we want to exchange. And we understood that making together in so different context, being China, being Mexico, being another context, because we use this universal language that is making, designing somehow, exchanging expertise to arrive to the result we wanted to do, we wanted to achieve. This is the thing. So we design processes, and the process is the most important part of our work. Then at the end, what we make, as a shape, not necessarily, not always, because with the deaf actor is really a way to involve the community as well, and the other minorities as well. So they are like facilitator in somehow. We use this anthropological method in somehow, but not only because for example, in Sardinia, all the musics that you listen was made by this musician that is from Sardinia, that was in the boat with us, in Asinara with us. And that music is the reinterpretation, but archaic music from Sardinia, from Nuragic population that was 2,000 years ago. That is something like with the guttural. That's something in common that we have with Africa, because Sardinia was part of Africa. We are more African than Italians, So it's something to work with this, cultural heritage that you own by your culture, this sense of identity, but in a positive way, not in a negative way, to create, walls or boundaries, but to break the boundaries in the world. So a way to work in an ancestral way, like we used to make in the past, really past period.
Thank you very much for a very inspiring, and I feel like I've been on a holiday through those beautiful photographs. I was interested in, you say you go back with a different group, and I understand that, what gets kind of created is part of a process of the experience and interaction. I'm interested, what happens to these objects when you go back again? What has happened to them?
Yeah. First of all, are not objects. Because, somehow we like to create places. Big difference in between the objects and the places are devices in somehow by which people can interact and tell to us something, thermometer in somehow. For example, during the 3 years we have been in China, what we have done the first year that I didn't show to you was a red pavilion made by bamboo, because when we arrive there, we go on the forest, we choose the bamboo, we cut the bamboo, we make all together because we learn from them, and then they learn from us. They used a lot, for wedding, They used to go there and take picture for the wedding. It was a pavilion in front of this emerald pavilion, in this Shishinan, in this pond that was the square of the place, that was of 15th century, really important for them. So we create a new device that could speak with this pavilion. And they used to go in our pavilion to look at the emerald pavilion, because normally they used to go inside this pavilion and look around, but never look the pavilion from outside. So they use, for example, happens, for example, in Florence, what we have done during the last 3 years. Some of these devices were disassembled and be back from the place from where they arrived. That is the forest, where the agency forest stay in near Florence, Vallombrosa, that is really ancient forest. But some of them were adopted from the local club, because when we are there, we stay always there in a local club. And outside, I have another video, but it's too long to show to you. There is Walter Hood and Ribava that here, Neville Mars working with us. And we don't work in classes like in buildings. We work outside with the people. So it's a beautiful, funny place where there is, the football, historical football in Florence, and there are all the people that go there to see the game, tourists. And while we were there, we dialogate with the people over there. So at the end, they adopt our installation. But some of them, they have to disappear because the Arno River is a flooding risk. Not really, but for, security reasons, we cannot leave our installation over there, because in November, the Arno River grow, and so nothing can stay in the bed of the river, because the furious of the water could broke and transport with the water and create problems to, for example. Or in Asinara, it's super cool because they send to us message. For example, in Florence, we have done this Arno safeguard, that was this big chair, really tall, like 6 meters tall, or probably 8 bigger. And the idea was by this guy that was arriving from Libya, and we made this chair because in this part of the Florence, people went since 50s to take the sun. And I remember that we couldn't fix on the soil because we hadn't the right to do it. It was a punk. The guys that they go with their dogs, we call punk a bestia in Italian. That means the punk, they have the earrings everywhere, the tattoos, etc. And he was sleeping under the bridge, and was an employed guy. He was a worker that was making buildings, able to make the things, but he lost the job. So he was sleeping under the bridge with his dog, of course, a pit bull, really big, dangerous dog, a female. And he was used to make the guardian of the installation, of the device. And I remember that once these kids, baby gang, they threw the big chair that was really long into the river. And he called me immediately. I arrived over there with the people that was underwear with the bikini. We arranged all together to take again the chair, and then we fixed it. And this is for us the best result. But because it means that the people somehow adopted the installations, they care of the destiny of these things, This is the best result. So the affection for the things, And this guy was part of the processes as well. He was with us, looking with us, speaking with us, with the guy coming from Harvard, and the guy coming from Libya, and the guy that was homeless in Florence, no differences. I like to say that it's somehow is a democratic way, but to work. But in reality, what I would like really to do is to give again dignity to the architecture, because the architecture is to ameliorate or to make something better. Couldn't be like a box building or an enclosed space, you know, or thing like that.
May I go? Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Annacaterina. Nice to meet you in person. We chatted, I think it was on Zoom or Teams a while ago. Thank you for your presentation. Really enjoyable. I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, please.
The first one is, I really enjoy working in different contexts. Mexico, Italy, China. I wanted to know first, what has changed in you first as an academic as a result of working in these different contexts? Because I believe that you do change. So I want to know what that is, if there's anything at all. Second one is one of perhaps maybe as also a landscape architect, to ask why you've abandoned the larger objective of the landscape architect, which is a long-term project. Landscape architects grow things, grow trees, etc. And I noticed that you are more involved in making things which are short-term and ephemeral and experiences of senses. So why have you abandoned that long-term goal, which I think would add to your experience when you return to a site of work after some time? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your questions. First, I have to say that this is the result after my PhD. I took my PhD in Sardinia at Alghero University 4 years, and I started with, because I was working with artists and with this idea to change the perception of the place, land art, environmental artists, and things like that. So I wanted to, after having a traditional PhD, to find a way to test what I was trying to demonstrate physically by myself. So I founded in Sardinia this workshop that was called Landworks Sardinia, and experiment in abandoned site, in the geomineral park, because Sardinia has a lot of mines, like here, but silver and other, not gold, and other kind of stuff. And I have to say that every time I make my experimentation, starting from Sardinia to the other country, I felt myself enriched. And I have to say they teach as well, in a traditional, if we can say so, taking care of the student, making critiques, etc. But what I do, I always try to do workshop to make the things more than, you know, more traditional way of working. And I have to say that every time for me is a wonderful gift, because to test myself in a different context and my methodology, and see the answer, the response, the feedback of the people there is a big gift. I feel myself happy, because it's what I think should be an architect, my idea. And while I test, in my point of view, and I have the response, the feedback of the people, that they are happy to be part of our experimentation, for me is the best result, the best gift. And the other questions is like, I don't abandon at all my being landscape architect, because as you see, for example, in 2020, we work with the junipers family, and we prune the junipers and we work with the environment. And the other thing is, what is landscape architecture? What is architecture? We really believe that architecture is to make buildings, or that landscape architecture is to make gardens. For me, what I do, the process, I design processes exactly as well, you know, make a landscape architect. A landscape architect not necessarily work only with people or the anthropic part of the environment. If you think of our great colleagues and big friend, Walter Hood. Walter is an artist and is a landscape architect, and he made memorials. It doesn't work necessarily strictly with vegetation of with living organisms that are plants. For me, it's exactly the same. The humans and the more than humans, we are part of the unicum. So for me, the difference between the architect and the landscape architect is really, piccolo. Yeah, tiny.
Illuminating presentation. Thank
Thanks.
you very much. I have a question, two questions, maybe related. One is there anything in your processes or in your final installation that has ever shocked you or surprised you or even scared you, that it just went somewhere where you never even imagined it could go? And also, when you think about landscape architects or architects as practitioners, we generally produce documents, drawings that minimize risk and failure. That's sort of the point of them. How do you see those concepts of risk and failure? How do you conceptualize them? How do you see them in your work, within the context of your work?
Yeah, okay, somehow they are related. I have to say that, of course, that when we made this kind of workshop with students and communities since 21 as well, because we made again in Mexico during the COVID. And I have to say that in somehow there is I act like director. So in reality, I have to guarantee that there is safety for the situation, that nothing dangerous, nothing can be, not valuable for what because in reality we are all instruments, but these instruments need to have like a direction in somehow, no? At the end. And for the thing of the risk, I can say to you that, for example, once when was the year of the deaf actors, happens that they arrived in April and the Arno was not so good at that period, and then decided to cross the Arno and go on the other side of the bed of the river, but started raining and the water was growing up a lot, and the responsible of the group was this Elisabetta Bianchessi, my colleague, that was responsible for a unit, but at some point they finished on TV, because arrived the helicopter to try to save this kind of group of people, and I was really disappointed. I was really shocked to answer to your question. But of course, I am coordinating all, and normally I work with a group of, practitioners, that they should be able to understand what is possible to do and what is not possible to do, to don't put in risk their units, of course. And the other thing of the shocking, I have to say that I was always impressed in a positive way. Yeah, always. Never happened something that was terrible, Yeah, or something that we had. When we made the first year in China, we had like a group of Chinese guys. They were all together. That's why we always separate the situation. We put all different culture, background, community, etc. Because happens that they wanted to do something that was not possible to do, was not sustainable at all, because it was not so nice, acceptable. So somehow we try to mediate. It's a work of mediation, of course, because the culture are completely different. No, so as well is this relationship, dialogic relationship, is not only between us and the local community, but as well in between us and the students, for example, that work with us. Or when we were on the boat, we were 10 people. Some of them, they were not used to stay on a boat, and we have to stay there to manage to drive the boat, to cook, to drive in a safe way, you know, and so we were in this environment that was really closed, where we had to make, you know, these dialogues to try to achieve the result in a short period. And it was really particular because our home was a floating home and the place where our field was the island. And it was strange because we felt at home in the boat and not in the island, you know, so a lot of strange, you know, but really we felt lost. I says in the video that was a journey in between of Enea, you know, looking for a new home, and Dante, because we miss our street view. No, so we need to re-put again in discussion ourselves and to try to understand a different way of working. Or, for example, in Mexico, when we were there, I took the COVID. So I didn't know, but while I was working over there, I had COVID. While I was being interviewed, when I was speaking, I had the COVID. And I managed. I didn't know. I managed making the workshop and relaxing on hamaca, you know, and try to make my best to achieve the goal and finish the experimentation in somehow.
I'm curious as to, I see that you only started, you use film, but you only presented from 2019. It's an extremely beautiful way, that it's a soothing way that you present your work. And I want to know that if COVID has kind of pushed you in a way to use film, or has it always been a method of representation for you?
I have to say that we were pushed by this opportunity of Venice Biennale, because the curator want to be sustainable. So they pushed us in making film that was not absolutely our expertise. And I have to say that we have a lot of documentation. We made filming somehow in the past, because it's a really interesting way of documenting the processes. But he wanted to be sustainable. So he convinced me to make this, and like to reduce as much as possible the physical installation. That's why, in reality, we were the most sustainable one, because we brought plants that now are in gardens, and we brought the Posidonia oceanica that after Venice Biennale have been in Marino Marini Museum in Florence, another expo at the MAD Murate Art District in Florence, now in Rome, and then it's going back to this expo that is made by physical elements, and the video is going to be back in Asinara now, and going to open for the end of May. But the other pavilion, they were full of things, objects, no? And in reality, so we tried as much as we can to be sustainable in all possible way, trying with the logistics and, you know, and so that's why. And I have to say thanks, because now I have a way, because I have a lot of, you know, wherever I speak and with the picture that anyway are good picture, because we have really good photographers, nothing like the documentary can explain the process. And this was thanks to Venice Biennale. And now, thanks to this opportunity, we had a couple of video makers that always come with us, because it's really difficult to find a filmmaker that can interpret what you want to do and by which you work well. I had always terrible problems with that, because a completely different discipline and way of thinking and working. Thank you so much. Thank you.